Okay, well, good evening and welcome to the third JCLP President's Forum meeting. I am Ann Tettelbaum, a member of the JCLP board and a member of Temple Bethel of Jefferson City, Missouri. On behalf of my co-chairs, Sam Bernstein from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and Marcia Storch, formerly of Olean, New York, and now Gainesville, Florida, we appreciate your being here tonight. But before we get started, Noah has just a few announcements. Noah?
Thanks, Ann. The Marcus Foundation is funding a program called Root One, ROOTONE, and it's a birthright type program for 10th and 11th and 12th graders. I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody in this forum. If you have if any of the congregations have children in that age group, we'll have a meeting for them with the Root One folks. They provide up to $3,000 scholarships to Israel. So I think this is a really wonderful opportunity. So we'll do that. Second thing is I've received some questions. And I'll send this to the whole group as well, but if any of you have security and medical protocols for your building, I'll send the email, but if you can send that to me and I'll distribute it to everyone, because there's some congregations that don't have them and really don't know how to proceed. So I'm just ask if you do have that, please do. And finally, if you all could mute yourselves, and when the speakers will speak, then obviously the speakers will unmute. Thanks, Ann.
Well, tonight's program will focus on the religious experiences provided by small congregations. We have a very full agenda covering a range of issues that are relevant to many congregations, and each presentation will be about 5 minutes, so we'll have time to hear from you. Our program should conclude by 8:15 Eastern Time. I encourage you to post comments and questions in the chat, and as Noah said, please mute yourself, and if you're a presenter, remember to unmute yourself before speaking. So without further ado, we'll start our program. I'm pleased to call on Rabbi David Lyon, who is Senior Rabbi of Congregation Beth Israel in Houston, Texas. He's also a JCLP board member and chair-elect of the Central Conference of American Rabbis of the Reform Movement. He will speak on the topic of large congregations assisting small congregations. Rabbi Lyon?
Well, thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be taking a break from writing high holiday sermons. Organized in 1854, Congregation Beth Israel in Houston is the oldest congregation in Texas. It currently occupies its 4th address in Houston, having moved to the Meyerland area, as it's called, in 1967, in 140,000 square feet. The saying is true that everything in Texas is bigger, but it also comes with its own challenges, including meeting the needs of 1,600 plus households and community obligations. With 3 full-time clergy and ample educational assistance, we are still seeking other ways to afford more rabbinic support. Historically, we've had 4 clergy, 3 rabbis, and 1 cantor since 1990. As a JCLP board member, our congregation signed an MOU with a small congregation in Victoria, Texas, where some members of Beth Israel have history and relatives buried in their cemetery. The agreement between us creates a relationship whereby we stand ready to assist in the events of any needs in Victoria's cemetery. And since then, we all know that the rabbinic world has changed. Fewer rabbis are available to all of us, and smaller congregations are without familiar means to attract them or pay them. It occurred to me that we have overlapping interests that could be solved if we work together. For example, a congregation in Waco, Texas, is seeking a rabbi to provide continuity in community on Shabbat, holidays, and special occasions. We are seeking a rabbi to supplement our clergy team, but without requiring a rabbi to be with us every Shabbat. In fact, Shabbat is manageable with 2 rabbis and a cantor, but weekday events, funerals, and hospital calls place heavy demands on us. Therefore, I've proposed this solution for consideration. A full-time rabbi could be shared between Beth Israel in Houston and another small congregation, just like the one in Waco. The arrangement could look like this. First, the rabbi would live in Houston, where a larger city could provide social, cultural, and other experiences, especially for a young and single rabbi, as well as access to other destinations via 2 substantial airports. Second, the rabbi would make 2 visits per month, negotiable for more, to a smaller congregation on Shabbat, holidays, and other occasions as they arise. The rabbi would serve them on the high holy days and festival days too. Third, the rabbi would be paid by both congregations according to an MOU between the congregations. Fourth, the rabbi would be supervised by the senior rabbi and or the associate rabbi at Beth Israel. Fifth, other benefits to a smaller congregation include complete access to all our online programs and live stream services every week, and in-person attendance when members might also be in Houston. And sixth, the rabbi would have more formal obligations in Houston, but room to serve more independently in a smaller congregation, according to the relationship the rabbi creates with that congregation. The downsides are minimal. A rabbi might not fly or might not like to fly to Waco or drive to Waco about 3 hours away, but the privilege to serve the Jewish community and grow as a rabbi who receives supervision and independence could be a true bonus. I see this model as a potential solution to meet the needs of small congregations that are not far from metropolitan areas, where large congregations might also benefit from additional clergy and the shared cost of affording them. I've never heard of a large congregation that said they couldn't benefit from more staff, but even they struggle to afford the cost of a full-time rabbi. The mitzvah to help a smaller congregation while serving one's own congregation is obvious to me. I hope that it's obvious to you and to others who can find their way to resolving the needs of all congregations who love Judaism and Jewish life. We have been taught in the Mishnah, Aseh lecha rav ukaneh lecha chaver. Get yourself a teacher, a rabbi, and you will have for yourself a friend. No community should be without the privilege of having a rabbi who can create special bonds and many reasons to believe in the Jewish future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Lyon. I will now call on Dr. Carrie Citron, B'nai Israel Synagogue in High Point, North Carolina, who will speak about their national clergy search. Dr. Citron.
I am Carrie Citron, a board member of B'nai Israel Synagogue in High Point, North Carolina. I was put in charge of our rabbi search. B'nai Israel has a 135-year history, beginning as an Orthodox congregation, but over the years it has migrated to conservative and now is Reform. It has been affiliated with the Union for Reform Judaism since 1997. Since 2007, we have had a student rabbi each year from Hebrew Union College who would come for the high holidays and then once a month for 9 more months. Our last student rabbi informed us while she was very much enjoying our congregation, she needed to get experience working with children, a religious school, and bar mitzvah students, all of which we no longer have. Hebrew Union College informed us that there were no available student rabbis for us and for many other searching congregations next year. The board decided, therefore, to search for a retired rabbi willing to travel to us. Our congregation now has 30 member units, which has created a real challenge in obtaining clergy support. We started the rabbi search process by contacting the Central Conference of American Rabbis, the clergy placement unit in the Reform movement. We were told they would help, but that this process would take time to implement. In the meantime, we wanted to confirm a rabbi for the high holidays as soon as possible. We have been working with the Jewish Community Legacy Project for well over a year, and so I asked for their assistance. They were excellent help and gave us 3 additional options: the National Association of Retired Reform Rabbis, the Academy of Jewish Religion, and the Jewish Federation of Greensboro. Our discussion with the National Association of Retired Reform Rabbis was the ideal contact. Rabbi Gary Glickstein, the executive director, was very helpful. He sent the congregation profile that I had written and our clergy needs to his entire mailing list. Within only 1 or 2 days, I had received responses from 3 retired rabbis. Within a few days thereafter, I had spoken to 10 rabbis, and altogether, I was contacted by 18 interested rabbis. I spent at least 30 minutes talking with each of the 18 rabbi candidates on the phone. These were one-on-one personal calls and were critically important. They gave me an idea of the speaking style, character, and experience of the rabbi, and whether the rabbi would be compatible with the interests and traditions of our congregation. Once I thought someone had the potential to be a good fit, I asked him or her to send me a video of one of their sermons, if available, and their resume. Once I selected an excellent candidate for our needs, I asked the layperson who organizes and performs our services and also taught the student rabbis to speak one-on-one with the candidate. She discussed our service preferences and determined the rabbi's flexibility to perform the sort of service our congregation wants. When she and I agreed on the candidate, we then asked the congregation's president, a businessman whose father was a rabbi, to interview the candidate, and if he also approved, to handle the negotiations and contracts. Within a few weeks after initiating the interview process, we selected and hired a rabbi who will lead high holiday services for us. He also has agreed to conduct services throughout the year on a monthly basis and also on select holidays, and he has already started doing so to very positive feedback. There are several important takeaways from our rabbinic search. Our leadership was in agreement with what we wanted for clergy support. 2, we used the resources available to us through our affiliation with the Reform movement. 3, we asked for suggestions to help identify other possible sources. 4, we had to be patient, and yet we were persistent. It is not a quick, simple, effort-free process. And 5, we gave a very good and honest presentation about our temple being a warm, welcoming place. In conclusion, we know that congregations are facing challenges in securing clergy support. As options become limited, we need to make use of all of our contacts so we can successfully hire a rabbi. Thank you.
And unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Citron. I will now call on Sam Bernstein, co-chair of the JCLP President's Forum, a JCLP board member and president of Temple Hadar Israel in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Sam will speak about their clergy search using local resources. Sam?
Thanks very much, Ann. Good evening, everyone. As Ann said, my name is Sam Bernstein, and I'm the former president of Temple Hadar Israel in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I also serve as co-chair with Ann and Marcia of the JCLP President's Forum, and I serve on the JCLP Board of Directors. While our congregation closed about 5 years ago, our experience in seeking clergy support can be helpful to any congregation represented on this forum tonight. The High Point, North Carolina experience called upon the resources from the Reform movement. My presentation will speak about seeking assistance through the local Rabbinical Association. This process is relevant to congregations near urban areas. Temple Dar Israel is an amalgamation of Tifereth Israel Synagogue, which was Orthodox and conservative, and Temple Israel, which was Reform. Tifereth Israel congregation was founded way back in 1894. Temple Israel was founded in 1926. At its height of membership, the congregations had approximately 400 families. When we closed in 2017, we had approximately 25 families remaining. We have always had a full-time rabbi. During my term as president, leadership determined not to renew the rabbi's contract. The primary reason was funding. I informed the rabbi 13 months in advance that we would not be renewing his contract. The rabbi was not pleased, got angry, and actually left in August before his contract ended that December. We were thus put in the position of not having a rabbi for the high holidays, literally a month before the high holidays were upon us. We have been working with JCLP, and I had called David Sarnat for assistance. David networked immediately with the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh, which introduced us to the Greater Pittsburgh Rabbinic Association. I drove to Pittsburgh, which was only about an hour away, for a meeting with the Federation and a representative from the Rabbinic Association. Without hesitation, they committed to give our Newcastle temple a rabbi for the high holidays. The rabbi was only available for Rosh Hashanah. The Rabbinic Association again came to our assistance and provided a different rabbi for Yom Kippur. We cannot be more grateful for the tremendous support from the Federation and the Rabbinic Association and for JCLP for making the match. After high holidays, we again engaged in conversation with the Rabbinical Association, and that was brokered through the Federation and JCLP, for a rabbi for Shabbat services. They sent us names of several candidates. After interviewing them all, we made an offer for a part-time rabbi who actually did all that was asked of him and even much more. It is critically important that the characteristics of the interview are compatible to the congregation, and we were not disappointed. It must be a two-way fit. Given our demographics, we were able to relate to senior people. The rabbi was also okay knowing that he would not be teaching children. And at that time, we only had one child in the congregation. And the rabbi was also willing to travel on Shabbat. He did have a need for benefits and was willing to take a stipend to take care of that situation. The rabbi's compensation was in line for a rabbi in a small town congregation, not in line with what urban area rabbis would typically command, which was obviously very helpful to us given our situation. The rabbi was willing on an ad hoc basis to do other rituals such as funerals, unveilings, adult education. And since our membership was diverse in practice, he was able to appeal to both those from the conservative and Reform traditions. As we all know, not always an easy challenge. Our rabbi served for about 5 years until the synagogue closed. He was always kept apprised of the plans for closing, and he was fine with the arrangement. Everything was very open and very communicative. He eventually found a congregation in another Pittsburgh area congregation. To this day, he is sometimes requested to do funerals of our congregants 5 years after the synagogue closed, a testament to the wonderful relationship he established with the congregation. We are grateful to JCLP for pointing us in the right direction into the Pittsburgh Federation and especially the Pittsburgh Rabbinic Association. One final note, if your congregation is not near an urban area with a federation and you are not affiliated with a denomination, let JCLP know of your clergy needs. There are several additional options. One, rabbinic seminaries that will place rabbis in unaffiliated congregations. 2, stable synagogues with many rabbis who may be able to make one available on a limited basis, as we've heard earlier tonight. 3, rabbinic associations may have a list of retirees who may be interested in helping out small congregations. Another example we've heard earlier tonight. And 4, Hillel students and lay daveners who might also be willing to travel. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to share this story this evening, and I hope the rest of the evening is enriching for you.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you for the story about your congregation. I am sorry that Dr. Carol Elstein can't be with us this evening. She is the co-founder of Lador Vador, a consortium of 6 temples in northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. Instead, Noah is going to present for her and will speak about hybrid services, in person and Zoom or live streaming. Noah?
Thank you, Carol. Carol sends her regrets. She is not feeling well, but she asked me to read her presentation. A few quick facts about Lador Vador. The consortium is an umbrella organization that was formed in 2012 for 6 tiny congregations in rural and remote northern, lower, and upper Michigan and adjoining Ontario, Canada. Each congregation is the center of Jewish life in its small Great Lakes community. The distance between the 2 farthest congregations is a 7-hour drive. The 6 congregations range in size from 10 to about 80 households. The combined membership is just under 250 households. There's also a guesstimated 200 unaffiliated households in the region with at least 1 Jewish member, primarily associated with the colleges and the medical institutions there. The consortium offers 2 to 4 regional weekend fellowship retreats per year where participants come together. They gathered in person from 2012 until COVID hit in 2020. Then they met via Zoom. In-person retreats resumed in 2022. For the hybrid model of in-person and virtual events, given their distance, virtual programming has always figured into the equation. They started with monthly conference call leadership team meetings with follow-up emails as needed. Now they meet monthly via Zoom and communicate by email as needed. In 2017, a leadership team member created a Skype Sunday school class for her granddaughter and 3 regional students of similar ages. At the time, religious education in their local synagogues was scarce to non-existent. The group met regularly for about 3 years and developed enduring friendships. In 2019, a Detroit foundation invited Lador Vador to submit a multi-year grant proposal to increase its region's sustainability. They envisioned a grant to connect the congregations virtually through identical computer equipment and to create 3 new positions to expand their array of virtual and in-person activities. COVID hit just as they were completing their proposal. Their serendipitous foresight allowed them to adapt almost immediately to the pandemic. First, they canceled their 2020 spring and summer in-person activities and concentrated on helping their congregations adjust. 3 congregations shifted quickly to Zoom. The other 3 closed down for the duration, with their members finding virtual services both within and beyond the consortium. One congregation had hosted an annual summer rabbi from Israel for several years until COVID interfered. Soon enough, the rabbi began to conduct weekly Zoom Shabbat services and Torah study sessions from the comfort of her Jerusalem home. All the other congregations were invited to join in. She and her husband have since resumed their summer visits, which are also conducted via Zoom. Zoom participants do not take part in services directly. but they do provide names for Mishaberach and for Kaddish throughout the chat. By fall, the consortium had repackaged their annual women's retreat into a full weekend of Zoom retreat activities, including musical accompaniments and chat rooms, and the reviews were overwhelmingly positive. All consortium activities through the end of 2021 were similarly transformed into virtual events, and participation increased dramatically. By 2022, the consortium and the congregations had all shifted to a hybrid model of combined in-person and Zoom access that continues today. In 2021, they created a bi-monthly home-based Zoom book club that attracts 6 to 10 participants, including an unaffiliated regional participant and 2 Metro Detroiters. In late 2022, the consortium hired an educator from Seattle to provide a combination of virtual and in-person services. She currently teaches 3 Zoom classes to children and adults and will begin a new regional B'nai Mitzvah cohort in the fall. The children's beginning Hebrew class includes bi-monthly in-person visits. The weekly Zoom class has facilitated new friendships among the children, and the bi-monthly visits have created a new family cohort. These regional friendships are doing wonderful things for the consortium's sustainability. Their 2023 Purim retreat was held in person with Zoom available as desired. Due to a sudden snowstorm that swept across the Upper Peninsula, their Torah study leader could not attend in person. They connected her and other stranded participants and the retreat attendees via Zoom, and the study session proceeded with minimal interference. They learned that even a snowstorm can't keep them apart. Access to Zoom has enabled consortium members to attend each other's events, thus strengthening the bonds among the congregations. Access to Zoom has also facilitated new friendships among children and families who live far from each other. Their now standard hybrid regional Jewish activity model has become a major community building vehicle that is bridging the gap of distance and facilitating the consortium's sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. And I'll now call on Leslie Mart, immediate past president of Temple B'nai Israel in Tupelo, Mississippi, who will speak about lay-led services.
Thank you, Ann. Shalom, y'all. I'm Leslie Mart, as she said, and I am the past president, 3 times over, of Temple B'nai Israel here in Tupelo, Mississippi. In the beginning, Bereshit, our temple started with a loosely organized group within about a 100-mile radius, ranging from Northeast Mississippi and Northwest Alabama. We don't have a lot of early history, but know that Emil Strauss and his family came from Germany to Fulton, Mississippi, opened a small grocery in 1877, and then in the early 1880s moved to Tupelo to open a butcher shop. Being one of the few Jews in the area, it is certain that this was not a kosher butcher shop, which shows how being Jewish in the South meant making adjustments to maintain their Judaism. As the number of Jews increased in the region, a Sunday school was started with parents and grandparents teaching children about their Jewish history and creating a community. They would meet in homes or in local businesses until finally, working with our community leaders, raised funds to construct our current building in 1956. Our congregation has and continues to include Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform denominations. I consider us an inclusive community. After all, when you're a Jew in the middle of the Bible Belt, you have to join together regardless of those denominations. At the height of our membership, we had about 75 families and a lot of children. We are now an aging congregation of about 32 families, with almost half who live out of town and no children. Our Jewish community has been very fortunate to have members who were very learned in Judaism and Hebrew, which allowed us to self-lead with a religious leader in lieu of a full-time paid rabbi. After all, what does a rabbi mean but a person appointed as a Jewish religious leader? They lead services and guided the congregation. At one point, we had a very active B'nai B'rith chapter, and we were members of the UAHC, which is now the URJ. While some members continue to be associated with B'nai B'rith, we have dropped all association with the URJ due to cost versus return. Our congregation prides itself on the fact that essentially all of our children have had a bar or bat mitzvah. Most of their training was done by our own religious leaders and or by members who were also fluent in history, theology, or Hebrew. Some had additional training by a cantor or a rabbi from Memphis if their family wanted it. The same holds true for our kids going to camp. Virtually all of our children attended Henry S. Jacobs Camp, which instilled Jewish learning and living. This is where our connection to the Institute of Southern Jewish Living, better known as the ISJL, started and continues to be a valuable resource for us today. Their costs are very reasonable and affordable. The ISJL the ISJL provides rabbinic services, educational resources, advice, and leadership when asked. They work with converting members in their training and come to Tupelo for their conversion ceremonies. They provide opportunities for rabbi visits. Recently, Rabbi Sim worked with an engaged couple and came to Tupelo to perform their wedding. We are blessed to have the ISJL as a resource. But except for those rare times, we are self-led. We lead our own Shabbat services, high holidays, other holidays, festivals, and events such as Passover, Simchat Torah, Hanukkah, funerals, etc. by ourselves. We schedule to have a potluck supper, celebrating together at least once a quarter. As membership has been declining, so has those members who are more versed in Judaism. Yet we're still blessed that we have people who have stepped up to lead services and have become lay leaders. Don't tell them that though. This has resulted in us being a very hands-on congregation. Yes, we have our challenges like every other synagogue about Shabbat attendance, but those who attend are given parts of the service for which they feel comfortable, lighting Shabbat candles, reciting the Kiddush, reading prayers in Hebrew, etc. They know that their contributions matter, and by partaking, it makes the service possible. In 2019, we made the decision to change to the Mishkan Tefillah because the prayer book has English, Hebrew, and transliterations, which allows us to use more Hebrew in the service by those who don't actually read Hebrew. Until COVID hit, we had Shabbat services every Friday evening for over 65 years, except for the occasional ice storm. We follow our services with an oneg that's presented by a rotation from our sisterhood members. About 15 years ago, after a couple of members came close to having a really serious accident because their vision had prevented them from driving safely at night, we decided that on the weekend of the first Saturday of the month, we would have a lox and bagel breakfast, followed by Saturday morning service instead of the Friday evening service. We did this because every member counts. We made adjustments to make sure they were included. Saturday morning services really invites other members to lead service and gives an opportunity to explore Torah. When I lead Saturday morning services, I use a book called The Bedside Torah, which gives a nutshell of the weekly Torah portion, and then I pick one of the 3 commentaries which speaks to me. Other members use different resources. And if we have less than a minion, we still hold services. Jack Crystal, a longtime member and leader who passed in 2014, said, "It only takes one person to have a service. God won't mind." Thank goodness we are back to meeting weekly and in person, regardless of how many attend. Our congregation may be small, but we treat one another as family. We welcome people from all walks of life. We are inclusive. We have a can-do attitude. We cannot afford to be cliquish and turn people away. We know we must work together because if we stop working together, we stop having a congregation. There's one other final important value of being a lay-led congregation. Not only do we keep Judaism alive in Tupelo, and we are able to sustain our wonderful congregation, but by taking responsibility for our own services, each of us strengthens our own Jewish identity. That is a gift each of us will always treasure. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Leslie. And last but not least, I'll call on Rabbi Andy Bachman, who is also part of the JCL team and founder of the Center for Midwestern Jewish Communities. He will speak about the clergy support process available through JCLP. Rabbi Bachman. And
just going to unmute here. First of all, Leslie, I think we may have met in 2018. I came down and spent a weekend with your wonderful community. When Macy was still, yeah. And I just pulled up, I couldn't remember if it was 17 or 18. So I went into my Google Photos and brought up some really wonderful shots of all of us on the Bima, a big community selfie. And it was great. And you're very, very special experience for me. And as my colleagues at JCLP know, and I see Greg Giles is on the call he in Sioux City, and he knows that the experiences that I had as I left the pulpit and was interested in kind of what was happening across the nation with Jewish communities. My experiences visiting small communities in the South, including Tupelo, was really informative for the inspiration for building the Center for Midwestern Jewish Communities. So I want to tell you a little bit about that work. I had written something up that I know Noah is going to share. So the general thesis for the Center for Midwestern Jewish Communities is to engage with and offer support to the well more than 150 Jewish communities throughout the Midwest that no longer have full-time rabbis and are facing mergers, closures, and a variety of legacy questions. These sacred Jewish communities are, as we've heard from so many people's comments on this call, really very sacred treasure troves of American Jewish history. And engaging with our communities, regardless of their size or whether or not they have rabbis, is absolutely critical to the ongoing project of continuing to build a diverse and meaningful American Jewish identity wherever Jews live. The inspiration for building the center was recognizing shifting demographics, which of course have always been a constant for American Jewry. But in the last couple of generations, we've seen quite significant and irreversible changes to small town Jewish life in the Midwest and in fact throughout the United States. And yet, as we've heard throughout this call, despite these changes, synagogue communities continue to hold on, innovate, and find new ways to provide the services that are necessary for these core Jewish values of Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. So the goal for the CMJC is to offer rabbinic, pastoral, educational services to communities not only in the Midwest, of course, but it's our early catchment area, but throughout the whole country. And I'm working very closely, and it's an honor to be a part of the JCLP team, to also engage in how these questions impact upon legacy planning. Some communities are really ready to talk about thinking about legacy, and some don't want to address those questions. But as all of us know who are in leadership positions in whatever community that we're in, how do we take care of our buildings? How do we take care of our sacred objects? Who's going to take care of our cemeteries and archives when we one day may be gone? And these are vital questions that, in fact, have always animated Jewish life throughout our 2,000-year history. I'm also, besides being a rabbi, was trained as an historian at the University of Wisconsin and as an undergraduate, and understand that the landscape of organizational Jewish life is shifting. The denominations over the last 20 years, both Reform and Conservative movement, have closed regional offices. We now know, it's being written about in the press, that there's a shortage of rabbis. There are smaller numbers of rabbinical students, no rabbinical students in Cincinnati moving forward, none in Los Angeles for the Reform movement. A very small class of JTS in the fall, 7 students in New York. So we really have a very serious dilemma on our hands for how it is that we're going to face the reality of communities that continue to desire to thrive and survive and exist. So the CMJC really wants to provide the kinds of support and services throughout the Midwest that will help these communities continue to thrive and survive. I'm doing a lot of traveling and visiting with communities. After this call, if you want to contact me and you'd like to have a phone call to find out how I can help access my networks, and then working with the team at JCLP to provide rabbinic support, proto-rabbinic support. I loved, I think it was Sam's comments about really thinking about hybridization of services, whether the Hillels we should be working with, what are the college campuses we could be working with. If we have a shortage of rabbinical students, then where are young people engaged in questions of Jewish life, and how can we get them to come and visit our communities and help lead services and things like that. These are all front and center of the conversations we have as a staff at JCLP, and we're very much committed to providing those services and meaningful responses to your communities. I know that I really want to use our time for discussion because there have been so many wonderful presentations, and you'll see more of my written report. But I again just want to end with reiterating that I am here and JCLP is here to offer whatever rabbinical services, consulting, help, networking, to provide the resources and the support that your critically important, sacred communities need and desire to have for your future and really for the future story of American Jewry.
Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you to all of our participants. And I see we have about a half an hour for questions and comments, and we do have 1 or 2 questions in the chat. If you would use the hand raise icon. So Noah, do you want to call on people, or did you want me to do that?
I can, or if somebody just wants to unmute yourself and ask a question and make a comment. There was one question earlier. Is the salary of an HUC student comparable to the salary of a retired rabbi through the NAORRR process? Can anybody answer that? Kerry?
Yes, I can tell you what I was given a price between $3,000 and $5,000 to $6,000 for the high holidays. Our rabbi was hired for $5,000 and our cousin for $4,000. And our rabbi comes once a month and any other time we ask him, and we pay him about $2,500 for that visit. Plus we pay for airfare and room and board and a rental car. So that's what we're doing, and that was acceptable. And once we chose that amount, we questioned, and people said that's about the right amount.
Joel, you have a question about live streaming? Joel Davidson?
Hey, Noah and everybody. This is my first time on this call, and can you hear me okay? I'm Lake Charles, Louisiana, and we're the recipient of COVID. We received a couple hurricane damage. So we started streaming a little bit after COVID, kind of haphazardly, very inefficiently. And then as Noah, I've shared with you, our rabbi, Barry Weinstein, lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he's been streaming our services from his home while we've been rebuilding our temple. We are going to be back in it full time, Lord willing, for the high holidays. And during this reconstruction, y'all, we invested some good money, thanks to our insurance, in a streaming. We never had it before COVID. And the concern is lately I've been hearing rumors about the streaming being an opportunity for anti-Semitic behavior, and just wanted to see if my concern is justified to share with my board. I'm the president, third generation in Lake Charles, and we're a small community, 30, 50 families. We say 50, but reality is we're probably closer into the, 40s, and very inclusive, just like the lady from Tupelo said. Is there any concerns by any of the group about whether we should reevaluate streaming our services when we go live again?
Sarah Kellen from Lincoln, did you want to respond? Unmute.
Yeah, I'm working on it. It depends on what you're using for streaming. If you're going only one way out, people can't crash in. If you're using something two-way like Zoom, then you might be more concerned about that. But there's ways around that as well.
Excellent.
Betsy Frank, Jeffrey Butler, and Tettlebaum.
We've done Zoom and we've had no trouble. We send it out the link to our very large people have
Right.
asked to be added on. And so the only way you can get in is through the link, and we have a waiting room. And so if somebody we don't know pops in, we say, "Who are you?" And we can remove them pretty quickly if it were a problem. It's according to how you set up your security on your Zoom.
Thank you. Betsy's from Terre Haute, Indiana. When you start speaking, indicate your community also. Jeffrey Butler, Val Myers.
Yes. I'm the
Ready, go.
president of our synagogue in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Congregation Sons of Abraham. We just moved up here in 2020, and I think we started Zooming during COVID, and we still continue with that for both Friday night services and for Saturday morning services. Saturday morning we're in person and Zoom. Friday night was strictly Zoom, unless someone like me wants to do a yurt site for his dad, and so let's do it Friday night. But basically what Betsy said is the same thing. The rabbi kind of controls the room, and if it's someone that he doesn't know or no one knows, if they, they either don't let him in or they could kick him out. But it seems to work very well, and we get people not necessarily just from our area. We'll have people that will, tune in from farther areas of Wisconsin, and we count them, if they're online, as a minyan for reading Torah and for saying Kaddish. So it seems to work out very, very well for us.
Thank you,
Jeffrey.
Al
I'll share this, Noah, that one of the reasons we're doing this is because so many of our members that grew up in our community obviously live elsewhere. Some of them could be in y'all's communities, and this gives us the opportunity to bring them back at least on a Shabbat, and obviously, hopefully, some part of fundraising when we're trying to accomplish things.
We have some snowbirds that go to Florida for the winter, being up in Wisconsin, and they tune in,
Or attached.
and if they have Jewish friends that live in the neighborhood, they'll bring them into their house, and we'll have a little extra people.
Yeah.
So it works out very, very well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Val.
Thank you.
Val Myerson.
Hi, I'm Val from Petoskey, Michigan, and just wanted to let you know that I'm on the regional board for the Anti-Defamation League, and they have been putting out additional warnings about swatting attempts, and many of these are coming in through a lot of them come in directly to police departments, but there have been incidents where they come in through some sort of streaming service. and the recommendation really is to just make sure whatever you're doing is really secured as best as you can. And there are other things that you can do to secure your Zoom feed other than just waiting rooms, because I've been in an instance where we've been kind of hacked in a Zoom, and it's harder than you think to get people off your Zoom, and it's very easy for them to take control of things. So the best thing is to have a good defense against it right from the start. So make sure you're doing everything you can to just secure your Zoom feed.
Thank you. We're going to have a session with the Secure Community Network and deal with all these issues, especially the cyber attacks. Ann Tettelbaum, and then Leslie, and then Rabbi Bachman.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the swatting. I attended a secure network, sort of a training, but for those of you who hadn't heard of it, it's so that they can watch either for fun, the police come, or it's to divert the police from some other place that they're doing whatever kind of mischief. But that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Ann. Leslie?
So one of the things that we did is the Facebook Live, which is just a one-way. And so we have not had any issues when we tried that. That was just a suggestion. One-way Facebook Live.
Thank you. Rabbi Bachman? Unmute.
Thank you, Noah. Yeah, just to echo what many people have said after Joel's comments, but when I visited Jonesboro, Arkansas, through the Institute of Southern Jewish Life, they had a very close relationship with a congregant who was on a conversion path, but who was law enforcement in Jonesboro. And I also visited Lake Charles, so I'm wondering if we met, Joel. But nevertheless, cultivating relationships with local law enforcement is critically important. And just to echo what Val said, the Anti-Defamation League is really, really vigilant. And so communication, feeding information into them is, besides all of the safeguards that you can take with the actual technology, to really be in open communication with law enforcement and with the ADL. I can't emphasize enough, I've seen throughout my career, is critically important for security and safety.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi.
I gotta say though, all y'all, we have not had any issues in our lovely community. So it's just more of a responsibility I have and the concern I have but we've never had anything, which is a beautiful thing.
Rabbi Lyon, we've had queries from congregations about the advantage of live streaming into these large synagogues, the Park Avenue Synagogue, Central Avenue, and so on. You had mentioned in your comment that your synagogue is open and welcome to anybody for your services. Can you comment on that? Because on the one hand, it gives congregations an opportunity to get the more formal services and so on. On the other hand, it may detract from the kind of inclusivity and familyness that Leslie was speaking about.
Right. It's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we, like any congregations, live streaming. If you go to our website and click, you're in, and you can join us anytime. We have a pretty sophisticated system, and security is an issue for us too, but we have it handled. On the other hand, listen, we have a lot of congregants who, because we're Central Time and Central Synagogue is Eastern Time, who tell us they watch Central Synagogue, then they watch us, or they just prefer Central Synagogue. But what I will share with you is you can experience today worship services anywhere in the country if you have an internet connection. And what it challenges all of us to do in our synagogues, large or small, is to do the best we can with what we have, to provide a service of meaning for those who watch. But when it comes down to needing to counsel with a rabbi or have a life cycle event or have a relationship with a rabbi, then the local person who serves you, in whatever way that happens, is really most critical. So when a congregant tells me, I love watching Central Synagogue, I say, good. I'm so glad that you enjoy Shabbat in another place. But when you need me, I know you'll call me and I'll be here for you, because you can't call Rabbi Bookdahl and ask her to officiate at your wedding or your baby naming, etc. So this is a new world we're all sharing. But I think that's the point. We're sharing it, but local, on the ground, face-to-face, personal relationships is always where Judaism will thrive and where it will grow.
Thanks, Rabbi. Do other congregations on this call? Oh, there's some raised hands. I'm sorry, Naomi and Ed.
Yeah. I'm Naomi McCormick from Sons of Jacob Synagogue in Waterloo.
Iowa.
Iowa, correct, not Canada. We officially have 30 individuals or families, but it's really considerably less. One reason, in terms of who shows up, one reason we haven't live streamed is we have housebound people who don't come, who don't use technology, who are quite elderly, and they would not be interested in that. And then we have some people who, since COVID, have become extremely isolated, and they will go into watch the services of the big congregations, and I don't think they're really taking a look at what that means in terms of not connecting with the small community that can be there for them. That becomes the substitute for coming, you know. So we have this sort of bimodal distribution of intellectuals who are streaming and not coming in, and people who lack the ability to use these technologies, but also are a challenge to get in because of their health issues and their age and Iowa weather. So that's a complexity for us.
But Naomi, if somebody is housebound, you'll have congregants come and pick them up and take them if they can't.
Right. But sometimes they say no. I mean, we've gotten to the point of begging people, and we are in a transition. So that's one of the things. We've sold our building and we're moving to smaller quarters, and some people are really struggling with it, and they don't want to come into the new place, at least yet. We hope to convince them, but we aren't able to make this transition to streaming as well as I think other groups.
Thank you. Ed Medras, unmute.
Thank you. I am Ed Medros, president of Congregation Aguda Shalom, Walnut Street Synagogue in Chelsea, Mass. We once had 21 synagogues, and we're now down to 2. But what I wanted to talk about was the Secure Community Network and how we utilize them. We last year got some weird emails that we couldn't figure them out. We didn't know whether they were suspicious, whether they were cryptic or what have you. We sent them to Secure Community Network, and within an hour we had an answer that they had also seen emails from these people, not to answer them, and they were on like a watch list. So I wanted to pass that on to you to utilize all the resources that you have available to you, and you get a lot of information from them.
Thank you, Ed. Kerry, unmute yourself.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that we started doing Zoom at your recommendation 2 years ago, and we have services every Friday and Shabbos, Friday, Saturday when the rabbi comes. But we've had several members start paying dues again and become active on Zoom, because we have people that have fears. We have people that don't dare drive in the dark, and we have several issues like that. And these people participate again because of Zoom. What I do is I only send a link to the people that request it, and we notify everybody 2 days before services to request. And I tell everyone I delete the link immediately after the service, and there'll be a new one each time. And of course, I use a waiting room when the rabbi comes because I use a personal meeting room that's a link that remains active. And that way we haven't had any issues at all.
Thank you. Those of you who are in a clergy search process, are any of you having difficulties in the process? Is it working smoothly? Is there any, or are there any questions that you have or suggestions that you may want to share? Anybody have anything to say? You don't want to say it publicly, okay. No?
Noah?
Jonathan, yes.
Yes, we're in the process now. John Rosenzweig, I'm in Hamilton, Ohio. Well, we're in the greater Cincinnati area. And our rabbi of 24 years is retired. We're a small congregation and we've been searching for a rabbi. We are, although the majority of our congregation is probably on the Reform side, we do recognize ourselves as a conservative synagogue. And we are listed with the RA, working through them for rabbinical student. And I have had maybe 5 requests for the position here. Actually, next week, we're going to be interviewing 2 candidates. Someone came as far as Chile to apply for the job. So it has been working from us in that standpoint. And I was able to hire a rabbi from Chicago to come in. But we're going to do 2-day services, and it's a long day with us for Yom Kippur. So $6,000 wouldn't cut it for us.
Thank you. David Post from Salisbury, North Carolina asks, how many rabbinical students are in the pipeline? Does anybody know? Rabbi Lyon, do you know what the rabbinical pipeline is in the Reform movement?
At Hebrew Union College, I don't think there's more than 14 students who are beginning their training this year.
It's 7 in the freshman class.
Is it 7?
Yeah.
No. It's 14 HUC. It's 7 JTS.
There you go. Thank you.
I just saw the picture. They only showed 7 people.
Maybe the ones were up late at night and missed the photo session.
Yeah, no, there's also a few at Ziegler out in California for the conservative rabbis. But it's 5 or 6 similar kind of numbers.
We have a list of different seminaries, and also there's cantorial seminaries as well. And we'll distribute that to this group if you'd like. There's contacts there, and Rabbi Bachman has made contact with the Academy of Jewish Religion, although David Feldman, I think he's still on the call from Malvern Jewish Center. His Rabbi Susan El-Qadzi is a member of that seminary program.
That's correct, Noah, and we just used AJR to find our candidate for the high holidays. So yes, we have a very close association with AJR. Yes.
We're creating a database of people who are not through the denominational channels, people who are interested and would be willing to come to almost any congregation, not on a full-time, possibly a part-time, but clearly on a episodic process. So if you have clergy needs and you contact Rabbi Bachman, we'll be able to give you that information as well. No, we're coming to the end. Any other questions? I just have one. Oh, Bernie.
Yeah, just one other point on
where are you from?
Oh, I'm Bernie Kingsmith, past president of Congregation Chabad Israel in Kingston, New York.
Thanks.
I was just going to add to the list of seminaries. There is the Jewish Renewal Organization with their Aleph program, which does produce, a small number of rabbis every year. A potential source of a couple more, but looking at some of the numbers, I mean, there's few and far between, but you may want to reach out to them also, Noah.
Thank you. One final question. Leslie talked about lay-led congregation. Are there other examples on this call today of lay-led, Anne?
We've been lay-led for 140 years. except for 2 years during the Depression. And we do have student rabbis. I'm astonished they're only either 7 or 14. Does that include both Los Angeles and New York campuses?
There's nobody going to LA this year, only New York.
What you mean is, well, we have an LA student rabbi for the high holiday.
Right, but the new ones coming in.
New ones. But anyway, I was really enjoyed hearing the presentation about Tupelo. And it can be done. It's
Yes,
not
it
to have
can.
a rabbi over the high holidays, however.
It can be done, and I'll tell you, being a small congregation, it is a whole different ballgame than being big. We are all close, we're all different, and we may have our little issues, but we are still all family. And every single person has a key to the temple, which is, that's just how it is. You have a key. Everybody has something they have to do.
Yeah, we have services every single week. We even have a member in Virginia who leads services virtually.
Wow.
And then we have one member who is so knowledgeable. I call him Rob Herschel. His health isn't so good, so when he leads, he does it virtually. But on other weeks, we're hybrid. We may only have 5 or 6 in attendance, but online we have that or more. We have a former med student who pops in every once in a while from her residency when she can. It's just, you do what you have to do, and we're committed to having services every week. When COVID came, we were off 1 week. I got a Zoom account and started sending out.
Thank you. Jackie Gish, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so URJ said they were starting a matching process for rabbis that could support congregations that used to have, especially congregations that used to have student rabbis. And I mean, we still have a student rabbi. He's now 5th year. He's multitasking here. He's Hillel rabbi as well in Los Angeles. So I was wondering if anybody has experience using that URJ thing with how it's worked.
Yeah.
We didn't apply this year.
I think, Rabbi Lyon, you may know, I think that's the CCAR Heartlands Fellowship.
Yeah, let me direct you to the CCAR. Rabbi Leora Kay and Rabbi Alan Berlin, I can put their email addresses in the chat so that you have it, but I think they would be able to inform you about placement process, which is handled through the conference, even though the URJ is the umbrella organization.
Also, Emma Osborne at URJ has information on that. And I have a question. Those people that say they're paying $5,000, we did that last year for visiting rabbi for the High Holy Days. We can't afford that every year.
That's either.
There's just no way we'd have to quit.
Our dues are only $200 a year per family. So there's no way that we can afford.
We only take in $21,000 in dues. So you can't afford that.
Yes. Marcia?
Okay. Had to wake myself up a little bit there. Anyway, this was a wonderful evening with lovely presentations and hopeful resources where someone could find possible spiritual leader for the holidays or for full time. So I would like to echo my thanks to all the presenters and to each one of you for being on this Zoom today. We will email you all the presentations along with the contact information in case you want to follow up with specific questions. Also, we will start a social forum thread on the JCLP website so you can continue the conversations on this topic. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 3rd. During Sukkot, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We will meet in our virtual Zoom sukkah. The topic will be historical preservation and partnership with national and local Jewish archives and museums. We look forward to seeing you for discussions around this very important topic. Let me remind you that you will receive a copy of this presentation. It is being recorded. You will receive a copy of everyone's presentation, and this program has been recorded. Wishing you and your families a very happy, healthy, and sweet new year. Lashana Tova a little bit early. Good night.
Thank you all.
Rabbi Andy, anytime you want to come visit, you come on down.
I'll be there. Rest assured, Leslie, I will come.
Well, we will welcome you and give you a key.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Rock on.
All. Ronnie, where are you driving? Are you in driving? You're muted. Ronnie, you're muted. Oh, now you're froze. Oh, yeah, there's what? There was poor reception. Oh, we'll talk later. I hope you had a good time in Iceland.
Yes, thank you. It was very good.
Good.
Take care.
We'll talk later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Hey, Noah.
Ed, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good, good. What's happening?
Nothing much. Great presentation. Very valuable information. Writing a lot of notes and things of that sort.